School vouchers. At the last state council, we talked about the key elements of this threat and the attempt by privatizers and pandemic profiteers to put a voucher initiative on the 2022 ballot. Aside from, and in addition to, a massive transfer of future school funding to private schools, if passed, taxpayers would immediately foot the bill for kids currently in private and religious schools to the tune of $4 to $7 billion each year, according to estimates from the state. But the even more pernicious goal of this scheme is to change the basic relationship between government and private and religious schools. One of the Orwellian arguments proponents will make is that passing vouchers is about civil rights. Well, they're right about it being about civil rights, about taking away civil rights. Voucher advocates are hoping the public doesn't see the insidious connection between the current efforts to curb voting rights, civil rights, and vouchers. But here's the reality. The early rise of school vouchers is directly connected to the 1954 Brown versus Board of Education decision that required the desegregation of public schools. The decision and subsequent desegregation rulings triggered white flight to private schools that were not subject to the Brown ruling. And in an attempt to skirt the law, some southern states issued taxpayer-funded school vouchers to pay for tuition at these private schools. Decades later, and as a key pillar of Trumpism, it is no surprise that former U.S. Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos pressed for an expansion of school vouchers, and concurrently, a Trump-led change in the balance of power on the Supreme Court was happening, which sets the stage for a court that will support what at one time would have been considered an unconstitutional expansion of school vouchers. And now, of course, one of the two vouchers out for signature is being led by a former Trump administration official. That means that the final front in the fight to stop vouchers will not be in the courts. The fix is already in. The final front in this fight rests at the ballot box. So it isn't a surprise that there is a heated battle nationwide on the part of voucher proponents to support efforts to limit access to the ballot box, voting. Because the broader access to voting equals more support for public schools. More support for public schools means voucher initiatives across this nation don't pass on election day. Vouchers are really about so much more than just profiteering and privatization. Much like the attack on Congress a year ago, they're about destroying a bedrock democratic institution, public schools. In many ways, the final front in the fight for our democracy rests with the health of our public schools. An eliminated or severely weakened public school system will pave the way for a weakened electorate, for expanded privatization, and for expanded and narrow definitions of religious freedom, where and how each of us seeks our spirituality to be directly weaved into every element, every right, and every limit on individual freedoms in our society. There is a bit of good news on this front, though. This writing, the signature gathering for both vouchers is tepid. That doesn't mean we're out of the woods on this latest attack, but with every passing day, it will be more difficult for them to make the 2022 ballot. 2024 may be a different story, so we'll stay tuned.